All right, so now we've shown the capability of being able to navigate from one component living on one page to another component living in another page, right? And that's great, right? So and we're passing path parameters from one of them to the other so that the child component can load the correct data based on any path route information that is being passed by the parent, yes? You can also create parent-child relationships of components that live or nested inside of each other. And so we'd like to be able to also use the same criteria, the same technique of encoding the state in the path, right? And then all the child elements just looking at the path, and depending on how the path changes, right, just re-render themselves, right? Re-render the DOM based on any changes in the path. So let's take a look at being able to navigate to a nested Angular component, right, that has been embedded inside. And we say navigating because indeed the actual URL is going to change, right? So the URL changes and the content will change appropriately, right? All right, so let's see. So to illustrate this, we're going to navigate to an embedded component that renders a list of tabs, right? And that content of tabs will be based on the selection of some parent components, right? Based on, if you select on a particular course, you'll see different lessons. If you select on a different course, then the lessons change, right? So those will change dynamically. So first, let's create a component that can render these lessons as tabs. So let's do that. Let's create a new component, and this will be lessons tabs, or lesson tabs. And now in the list of modules, what we'd like to be able to do is to render embedded these two, right? So here's the list of components, a list of modules, but then we want the tabs to be dependent on whatever module we actually select. Yes. So what we'll do is make maybe like a split screen, right, where we can have a left-hand side list of modules and on the right-hand side the list of tabs, right? So let's maybe remove this. Well, let's see, what do we have so far? This is what we have so far, right? We just have the list of modules taking up the entire screen. So let's split this in a third, two-thirds split, where this list is on the left-hand side, third of the screen, right? And we have the tabs displayed on the second third, two-thirds of the right screen. Okay. All right. So let's do that. Let's blow that away. Let's create a split, and for that we can use Bootstrap, right? We can use a class a row. We'll have just one row with two columns, right? A third column on the right-hand side and a two-third column on the right-hand. The one-third on the left-hand side and the two-thirds on the right-hand side, right? So on the left-hand side, we're going to create one column. So a third of 12 is 4, so this will be column 4, right? And so this will be the left-hand side, and then we can have the right-hand side over here. So right. Oh, thank you. 8. 2/3 of 12 is 8. Yeah, so we have there our left and our right, right? So let's grab this list and just put it in the left-hand side. So let's grab the UL, and on the left-hand side we can put in our list right there. There's a left-hand side, right? And on the right-hand side, I'd like to put is the new component we just created, right? Which is the tabs component. Yes. So let's do that. On the right-hand side, instead of this hard-coded, we can embed the new components, which I believe we called it lesson tabs. Yes? So this will be lesson tabs. There we go. And right now it's just displaying this lesson tabs works, right? That's the default content. So let's replace that static content with some meaningful content, such as tabs from Bootstrap, right? So let's go and fetch that on Bootstrap. If you navigate down to navs here, We can look at tabs. They're somewhere down here. There you go. So there's our tabs. I'm just going to copy these, and I'm going to put it in the lesson tabs. Let's go into the HTML template, and we're just going to copy and paste it in there and see how that renders. So that's how it renders right now, right? So you have the tabs on the right-hand side. Right now they're hard-coded. What we'd like to be able to do is instead, depending on the module that we select on the right-hand side, on the left-hand side, right, we'd like to be able to load the tabs on the right-hand side. And ideally, all this would be encoded. Any state change, right, as you navigate from one state to the next state, ideally all those state changes would be encoded in the URL, right? So that a unique URL will always render a unique user interface, right? So that ideally you could just copy this URL and send it to someone, right? And if they click on that URL, they would see exactly what you're looking at, right? And that so again, we're always going to try to encode the all state changes. All right, so for instance, if I click on any one of these, I would like to encode here that I'm clicking on module 1, module 2, module 3 as part of the URL. Right? And then we can have the right-hand side listen for those changes. It says, it's module 1, module 2, module 3. I need to reload the lessons for that module, for that other module, for that other module as the URL changes. Make sense? Okay? All right, so to do that, we need to create routes for these modules on the left-hand side. Okay, so for instance, what we could do is that in the routes over here, okay, we can create another route and say staying in the same course, but if you click on a particular module, I would like to encode the module ID as part of the URL. Right? And where would I go? Well, I'm going to stay in the same place. I'm not going to go anywhere. Right? The route is going to change, but I'm going to be in the same page. But because the route changes, it's going to trigger the activated routes listeners. Anybody who's listening for that changes in the URL, they're going to be notified, right? And they're going to be invoking those load course or load module or load lessons or load widgets or whatever. Right? They're going to be listening for changes in the URL. In this case, we're not navigating to a different component, right? We're staying in the same component. But elements, that component contains other subcomponents, right? So our course viewer component contains, on the left-hand side, the module list, right? And then it, in turn, contains the lesson tabs, right? And they're both going to be listening for changes in the URL. Right, excellent. Excellent. So if I now navigate to module 1, for instance, notice that I'm staying in the same URL in the same place. Okay. But anybody listening for event handlers will be notified. Right. So let's how do we do that? What we could do is that we can change each one of these into links, right? And those links can change the URL. Right, so let's do that. When we render the module list, HTML right here, here's where we're rendering the titles. There's our titles. Let's create a hyperlink out of these. Right? So we'll say this is a hyperlink. Okay, and the URL for this, it'll be a route link that will have the following pattern. It has to have that pattern, right? Course ID, module ID. Right? Certainly I have the module ID, right? Because I'm iterating over it, so I certainly have the module ID. Do I have the course ID? I believe I do, right? Because we used it earlier to render this, to fetch the modules, right? So I definitely have both. This should let's make sure though, in the module list component, yes, we have the course ID as part of a property, so we can certainly use that. So we could certainly say course / and we have the course ID. There it is. Oops. There's our course ID read from the component property, and then followed by module, and then the Module is the module that I'm iterating over, module and then .id. Okay? So that if I render this, notice that they already become hyperlinks. If I hover over them, notice that indeed they are mapped to the URL that we want, right? Course 1, module 1. I think my battery's dying. Course module 2, module 3, module 4. So if I click on it, notice that the URL changes accordingly, right? So what we need to be able to do is load the lesson for that particular module that has changed, right? And we'll do that next.